we are going to talk about posture, because one of the factors for longevity is how much muscle you have that sustain your stability.
So there is nothing that will wear you down faster than a forward posture.
So many people are complaining they always have back pain. What would be your advice for them?
How is it that doing some, for example, simple eye exercises is relieving my entire back tension or is improving my cervical rotation or shoulder flexion? The link is in neuroscience. The question is, why is it not taught to professionals?
Let me tell you something. If your posture is unbalanced, you are in a constant state of stress, said Annette Verpillot. My guest today for this podcast, very exciting. We are going to talk about posture. Annette, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us. I am so happy to have you. And you're from the same city I was in a few years ago. I don't regret it. Montreal. Oui.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure.
Tell us, posture, feet, jaws, sides, eyes, everything is, what is posture? What do we call posture? For me, posture is like standing up. What is it?
Yeah, well, it's the way that you're fighting gravity, basically. Do you have good control between your flexors and your extensors? And that muscle tension between the front and the back, the left and the right, and the ability to coordinate movement as we are moving within the environment comes from different parts of the body that send information to the nervous system and gives us a sense of balance and, as we were saying before, proprioception. So in essence, if these different body parts are sending conflicting information to the nervous system, then we end up having poor posture, and our line of gravity, which passes through the head, falls through the cervical spine, right through the body of L3, the lower back, and projects right between our feet, that line of gravity actually changes. And when that occurs, we tend to have a little bit more of an overcompensation on one side and a little less on the other. And this sometimes is not something that is really noticeable unless you catch yourself. Like a lot of people will say to me, oh, I catch myself on pictures. My head's always tilted on one side, or my shoulder is always lower on this side, or I wear out my jeans on that side a little bit more. You know, people will tend to notice these slight differences, but they don't necessarily associate it to posture and the nervous system. Posture and nervous system go hand in hand. So yeah, if we're going to talk about the best predictor, in my opinion, of longevity is how well are you fighting gravity.
I love it. Okay. How well you're fighting gravity? Predictor of, how well. Predictor of longevity. So I'll put directly a link there to muscle mass, body, actually, muscle in the body and posture are directly linked. Because one of the factors for longevity is how much muscle you have that sustain your stability. It's a bit on the same direction of what you are saying then.
Yes, absolutely. However, if you have poor posture, you end up being in a constant state, in a micro state, if you wish. And sometimes it's very small and other times it's much, much greater. But you end up being in a chronic state of dysfunction, which affects your stress response because you end up having a constant inflammation, cortisol in the body. And we know that the kryptonite of muscle mass is cortisol. So if there's one thing that we must learn to do, which we do learn as we start to develop and walk and develop our posture from a baby to an adult, 8 years old, and then into an adult, is the control of the balance between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system, which is directly linked to posture, but also the control of the flexors and the extensors, the ability to inhibit flexion and activate extension so that we can have that upright posture, which gives us synchronicity, fluidity in movement. So in other words, if there's poor posture, there will be biomechanical compensations that will lead to inflammation, that will create stress within the body, that will affect your hormone production and will affect and if we're talking about longevity, in the long run, this is an oversimplified version, but which will affect your longevity and your muscle mass.
Do I understand it well? Having a perfect posture would mean that you are not in any effort to keep it steady. Like you're not making any efforts to stand in the right position and fight against gravity. Is that the right understanding?
Well, you shouldn't have to think about perfect posture, because if we're let's separate the muscles into two parts for simplicity purposes. There's going to be the big muscles that we use to move our arms, right? Those are called the phasic muscles. They're away from your spine. And then the ones that are closest to your spine and to every single joint in your body are called the tonic muscles. The tonic muscles are activated before the phasic muscles, for the big guys, the big movers. And the tonic muscles are under the influence. They will contract based on the information that you are receiving. All of us, we are all built the same between our feet and our eyes, because feet and eyes, those two extremities of the body, affect our sense of balance. And the moment that our sense of balance is affected, it's going to affect the part of the brain, I don't want to get too technical, but the cerebellum, which is going to have an effect on our entire brain and our posture and our proprioception. If there's a problem with the feet and the eyes, there's going to be a problem with the vestibular system. And a problem with the any vestibular dysfunction activates the stress response. So it's kind of like, don't want to say a catch-22, but it's kind of, it's like a loop. It's a loop. So what is good posture? Not having any pain, not having to think about posture, but being perfectly symmetrical, meaning that one shoulder, I can consciously move my shoulders, but if I'm not moving and if I'm just standing and looking straight ahead, do I have a shoulder that's relatively lower than the other? And you could see this at the level of the wrists. You can see it at the level of the hips. And if you pretend that you're looking at someone from the top, you can see if there's a shoulder that's forward or back, or the same with the pelvis. All of these are indications of postural compensations. Now, the thing is if people work out with a body that is unbalanced from a muscular perspective, that unbalance, meaning one side is less active than the other one is tighter, one is weaker, that's directly associated to your vestibular system. One side being hyperactive, the other side being underactive. The brain picks up on this information and projects it downwards.
I always thought that, by working out, we find out that one side is always stronger than the other. It seems to be common to every single person in a gym. Like, oh, my right side is stronger, my left side is stronger, blah blah. But you're telling me that actually it's not supposed to be. Interesting.
It's not supposed to be.
How do you correct that?
The simple way is by just generating a massive amount of symmetrical proprioceptive information to the brain.
Only that sentence seems to be complicated.
A massive amount of sensory input to the brain. So you want to activate the brain because to move, you need to feel. You need to feel where your body is in space. Basic example, if I ask you to walk barefoot outside on a ground that is full of pointy rocks, right? This information that's picked up by the skin of your foot will change the way that you move, just the same way if you're walking on ice. But the information coming from the skin of your foot in comparison to, for example, the information on of the skin of your forearm has very different functions in your nervous system. So if I'm walking on my wrists on the floor, it's not really going to have the same impact as it would with my feet. So to change it, you need to improve proprioception to the nervous system and remove any imbalances, any conflicting information in the nervous system in order to have the most optimal muscular contraction, symmetrical muscular contraction.
Requires someone to watch and to guide you. Can you do it by yourself or?
Absolutely. A part of my daily routine every morning, and my children as well, as early as they could have started, it includes doing some visual exercises. I call them eye exercises, the purpose solely to work out the muscles of the eyes, because the muscles of the eyes are connected to the part of the brainstem that controls everything that is involuntary in your body. And they also have an effect on the cerebellum. Yeah, cerebellum, the smaller brain, which basically, everything goes through, when we're talking about movement, everything goes through the cerebellum. The cerebellum will give the final blueprint to the nervous system, will analyze where is my body in space, what is it that I want to do, am I stable, am I unstable, what's going on. All of this information is being analyzed by the cerebellum. And once the motor command is clear in the nervous system, of course, this happens extremely quickly, the cerebellum projects this information on the part of the brain that allows you to move. So if there is an imbalance, for example, with the movements of one eye, we're talking about the muscles of the eyes here, we're not talking about refraction, then the information from the muscles of the eyes on the left side, for example, will not be as strong as the right side. Well, the cerebellum picks up on this. You're not aware of it. So your movement will be flawed. A simple test that you can do is simply looking straight ahead, closing your eyes, and just lifting off one foot off the ground and feeling what the left foot, the weight-bearing foot, is doing. And then compare it to the right.
Okay.
And more often than not, the movement will be opposite to one another. So this is a great indication for anyone that there is a compensation that's stemming from the foot. Now, if you want to figure out if your vestibular system is compromised, remember the vestibular system will activate the stress response in the body. Then you can do a simple test, like, for example, sitting on a chair. Ideally, the chair should have wheels. And if you spin on one side with your eyes closed very gently and then compare it to the movement on the other side, more often than not, people will say to me that there is an imbalance in movement. So if I'm spinning to the left, once the chair stops moving, I should feel the movement continue for 8 seconds. No more. And if I spin to the right and I feel I'm moving, oh my God, it's going for 1.5 minutes, then there is an imbalance in the vestibular system. Well, this is unconscious. So on a daily basis, you are constantly over-soliciting or your sympathetic system. You're literally living in a state of stress, although you are trying to do everything in your life to better manage your stress. This could be the missing link.
You know what I'm doing most of the time when I go for a walk? I close my eyes and I walk backwards to get my proprioception. Yeah, and I can do a mile like that.
Very good. That's very good. That's very good. That's actually activating the frontal lobe.
But it's interesting because I'm pretty convinced that I am unbalanced.
We know that in French that this would sound completely different, would have a completely different meaning than it does in English.
It applies for both.
Oh, God. That's wonderful, Jean. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Oh my Lord! Yes.
What do you do to help people to understand? Just telling these tips and educating them, coaching them to apply those techniques every morning, every day, to make them better, or do you first start by doing a full diagnosis of where they stand, or like it's appropriate to say where they stand actually? Yeah.
Well, it depends. They come and see me. I have in clinic one-on-ones in person and consultations online, and I'm solicited for. I'm the last resort. When someone books with me, they'll spend 15, if not 30 minutes telling me everything that they have done over the last 10 years, everyone that they have seen, and they still have pain. So, what I like to do is make them understand that the symptoms that they're describing most of the time are linked to their feet and eyes. Something that I guess that then when they come and see me, they're kind of aware that I'm going to work with the nervous system, but feeling it in your body and trying to even logically understand how is it that doing some, for example, simple eye exercises is relieving my entire back tension or is improving my cervical rotation or shoulder flexion. That's something that really surprises people every single time. They just don't understand. They cannot comprehend the link. Yes, what is the link? But the link is there. The link is in neuroscience. The question is, why is it not taught to professionals? Well, I think that because I've yet to find the true reason why. I can only suspect the fact that it's not being taught in the educational system is primarily, I think, because the body has been separated into different segments. There are different professions for different parts of the body. And most of these professions are not fully aware that other parts of the body talk to one another.
The first reflex you have is to consult either a chiropractor after you went to massages and it didn't work, so you go to chiropractic, and after that you're going to go to those people using some sort of infrared or laser based therapy, but never you would think about, I'm going to exercise my sight, my eyes or my feet to correct my back pain, because it's, our society is based on that. You need to pinpoint where the problem is, and you think that the solution has to come from that area, like the back. You have to treat the back pain. It's a different dimension that you're bringing here, and it's going to take a lot of education to make people aware that this is connected.
Well, the absolute honor of being on a podcast like yourself to spread the awareness, I believe people should have a choice to choose whatever they feel comfortable with, providing that they know about it. But I do want to say that those professions that you've mentioned, they work. I think that they're great at alleviating the symptoms. But when you ask someone the question, would you like to manage your symptoms or would you prefer fixing the cause of the problem? That option is not often presented to anyone that has pain. Another thing that, Jean, I think is worth mentioning is that when there is pain, regardless of what pain we're talking about, there's always 100% an imbalance with the feet and eyes. You cannot have pain without having an imbalance with your feet and eyes. It doesn't exist.
That is very, very, very interesting. So you need to focus on those two factors, parameters, to fix the majority of pain.
First, yes. And when you before anything else, because you will end up saving so much time and money, but you will end up saving time. Because what most people are doing is they're managing their symptoms, and what's most frustrating about symptom management is not the money, although it is a problem, how much it costs, but it's time management. Time is the only thing you cannot buy. So if we can save time, I think that that's a super powerful thing. And most of the time with a healthy individual that has a healthy nervous system, we can see by stimulating, optimizing that sensory information to the nervous system through the feet and eyes, we can see reduction in blood pressure, a reduction in the markers of stress. You can actually pick up on this with blood work and see that there's a difference with the markers. Blood pressure tests, you'll see it instantly. When I say instant, I'm talking within the next 3 minutes.
Wow.
Not in 5 months. I'm talking like instant change. Because you're basically just bringing more oxygenation to the body.
Is that related to breathing?
Well, it's related to the center of gravity, right? Going back to that gravity and how the calf pump, the pump from the lower part of the body, is being pumped back to the heart and back down to the lower part of the body. So you're, in essence, your heart is able, your blood is able to distribute more oxygen to the body if you are better aligned. Now, of course, the position of the jaw, which is another topic in itself, is another topic that we can discuss. But if there's a dysregulation with the jaw, it just adds an additional problem on top of an existing one.
Go deeper into that pathway, please. I'm interested because I see the older you get, the more your jaw is falling, and the more people are like open mouths instead of closing mouths, and some sort of going on one side or the other side.
Yeah, so when we're talking about the jaw, basically whether it's posture or muscles or proprioception or jaw development, it really does go back to the first stages of life. And nothing is going to activate the muscles of the throat and the tongue, because when you're born,
old, you don't have teeth.
So what's going and when you get older, you don't have teeth either. Yeah, so it's kind of over for us. It's the end. No, but really, when we're born, we don't have teeth. And what is going to stimulate the development of our jaws, upper part and lower part of the jaw, which will then prepare the jaw for the eruption of the teeth, is tongue posture.
Yeah.
And is your tongue. And nothing activates the tongue more than sucking on either a breast or a bottle. Not only does it activate those muscles of the throat, but it also activates the facial muscles. You know, the reason babies look kind of weird when they're small is because they have no muscle tone in the face. So it's going to activate the muscles of the face, but at the same time, simultaneously, it's going to activate a part in the brainstem that is going to give us the balance of all human behavior, which is the ability to find balance between our sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So our ability to calm ourselves down naturally, which we cannot do when we are babies.
Many people cannot do it, even
sucking on the bottle as adults. Yeah, but the thing, this is what I'd love to, I always say, if I had a time machine to go back in time, I just wonder, now with gut problems, there's a theory coming out that if children are exposed to bad food in the early stages of life, they're more likely to have gut issues later on. Well, I'm wonder if we had parents that were well versed and aware of the different postural stages that babies go through, would we be giving our children the most chances to develop the neurological blueprint? Now, I'm not talking about intelligence. I'm talking just simply about muscle coordination, which everything fits together for upright posture. It's part of our DNA. We are made to move. We are made to speak, and we are made to use our hands and write. This is what makes us human. So there's a certain blueprint, a certain sequence that we all follow. And if that sequence is affected, then it does later on in life
question, actually,
cause problems.
Because it was part of the thing I wanted to ask you is like, if ever we would dream of having every newborn baby educated that way, we would get rid of a lot of problem, and a lot of money would be saved by government and healthcare system and everything related to that. Part of the education,
100%. If a child cannot feel their body, they will not be able to feel emotions.
It's a hard part of it, because many people on this planet are not capable of feeling their body the way that they are designed to.
Should. Yeah. Exactly. In essence, when you think about it, I think that technology is great, and God knows we've evolved so much in the last, these are the professionals saying it, scientists saying it in the last 10, 15, or even 100 years. But what we're doing is we're desensitizing ourselves. We are making ourselves numb, and that's not necessarily a good thing.
Sorry.
And it's really not a good thing for children.
I agree. Big fan of technology and things like that, but when I see people getting so much addicted to their trackers and they're not capable of feeling how their heartbeat is, we have a serious problem there. Like, we're making people so dependent to those tools that they're forgetting just to live the way we were designed for, by feeling those things, the environment, the ground, and like walking barefoot. How many people walk barefoot today? Not many.
Not a lot. But yeah, no, it's I think it's a problem, and I think that educating parents, but giving birth, it starts with the mother. Yeah. It starts with the mother's pelvis. For the woman's pelvis should be fully aligned, and you could tell if you look at the height of the pelvis. If you look at a pelvis straight ahead, there shouldn't be any rotation. If there is, she might have a harder time giving birth. The out flare that happens or occurs during pregnancy or the birthing process will be much more challenging, and then that can lead to complications with the baby or a cesarean. Because when a baby is born, there needs to be a trigger in the nervous system that tells the brain you're no longer in the womb, and that trigger is movement. Is movement, the movement of the head in relation with the cerebellum. It's always going back to the cerebellum. So when we inhibit that movement, that first movement that is super important at the beginning of life, already we are starting off with a deficiency.
Okay. Now, we want to educate this world. We want to tell people that it is important to have a perfect, a balanced posture, and to have their kids and everything. It takes a lot of Annette on this world to identify and to show people what to do and how to behave. Do you think that maybe one day someone will come up with the idea, and hopefully you're going to do it, because I think it's a good market to develop, using AI and image analysis by AI, and people could be scanned and say, listen, you need to correct that. Here's the tool to correct that. I brought that from Annette machine learning that is telling me you should implement those things.
Well, my God, I do hope I invent it, because it sounds very rewarding. Although I'd want to say that I think the technology already exists. I mean, MRI technology can tell you which parts of the brain will be more active.
But it's too late already, because if the MRI tells you that that part of the brain is more active and that part is not. Like if we were starting from the point referential A, and we are taking people to that point, when they go to the MRI, they wouldn't have that issue of seeing a part unbalanced.
True. I think that you can start at a very early stage to see if the part is lit up. But the good news is that, science is constantly changing. They used to believe that once you are, I forget how old, everything is set in stone and it will never change and it can never change. And now we know that c'est fini. It's the end. Well, now they know that there's neuroplasticity. So thanks to neuroplasticity, we know that at any age, we can create new neural connections. And this is why I often relate to, or even speak of what I do as a recalibration, a rewiring of the nervous system. Because that's in essence, this is what you're doing. And I often ask a minimum of 6 weeks. If you're going to do it and you want to give this a try doing those exercises for a minimum of 6 weeks. Why 6 weeks? Because that's how long it takes the nervous system, that's how long it takes for neuroplasticity to occur in the nervous system and become a habit. A habit. Because anybody could do anything within 5 minutes, but the moment that you stop, it doesn't mean that it's a habit in your muscles and in your fascia.
So
you want it to be a habit in your brain. And that takes repetition. Repetition and repetition is what solidifies the connection.
Because this theory about the 100 days, like it takes 100 days to create an habit.
Yes.
It's
10,000 hours actually.
6 weeks.
That's roughly give or take. And of course it varies between each person, but roughly it's around that time.
Controversy on that theory, but still existing and still out there. What's the first?
Of course.
That's a very cool question. What's the first steps? Talking about feet. Let's pretend, I want to challenge you a bit. I have a problem on my feet. I don't know, I lost a toe, or I got a cut, or I have those runner problem. Am I altering my proprioception, and therefore going to compromise or jeopardize my posture?
Yes. If there's a missing toe, for example, on the right side, your gait, the way that you walk, the weight-bearing surfaces as you're moving in space will be compromised. So we know that under the foot, let's talk about the toes, the midfoot is the arch and the rear foot is your heel. Every single part of the foot sends a different type of information to the brain. So for example, if I was to add more pressure on your heel, then mechanically your body would move forward. This would activate your vestibular system, your anterior canals in your vestibular system. You think you're falling forward, so you will pull yourself back unconsciously, and vice versa. So if there is a missing toe, going back to our example, then there's a part of that proprioception here that's missing. So there will be an overcompensation. So in certain cases, there are tools that need to be for life, unfortunately, because there's a constant source of imbalance in the body. But in most cases, with healthy individuals that have all of their toes, there are ways to constantly stimulate. You know what I do in the morning is I like to take a fork, I know it sounds silly, and rub the skin of the foot. You rub and most people will notice that one side is more sensitive or less sensitive than the other. That goes right back to the brain. So if your brain is having a harder time sensing the left foot, example, on the ground, then you'll overcompensate on that side. And you'll probably, fall more on that side if you're less sensitive. So rubbing the feet is a great way. You activate that part of the brain, get your brain ready for movement, just as you would if you took deep breaths, if you went in cold water. It's all about waking up the brain. And there's no better way to do this, in addition to everything else, than do using
when I
the
go
feet
for a
to do
pedicure,
so.
and then they go just to rub my feet, I can't just stop laughing. So
you shouldn't be oversensitive, though, Jean. I have to say, in an adult, we should be able to feel it, but it shouldn't be to the point that we're like lifting our leg off and jerking off our leg in every direction because we're so ticklish.
So I need to practice that with the fork every morning.
Yeah, and you'll see that if you do it yourself very quickly, your brain will develop the pathways to inhibit the involuntary movement that you're trying to do with that, and that inhibition is actually goes back to more muscular control. Full body. So it's a great thing to do every single day because it has these amazing results and these amazing benefits throughout the entire body. So it's in essence, you're literally activating all of your joints.
I do calisthenics and gymnastics, and I'm trying to fight gravity every day. Yeah.
Aren't we all?
It's true.
But you know that gravity movement can be measured with force plates, right? The more movement you waste within a surface, the more energy you are wasting standing upright, and the faster you are aging. So the least amount of movements that you'll do, and we all have a certain amount of tremors, and which is a question. This is why Parkinson's disease, they become more apparent because there's a disease in the nervous system. But the idea is to reduce those oscillations and the surface that we borrow, which is the line of gravity, as much as possible to increase longevity as much as possible. Yeah. And we can do this through the feet and eyes.
The feet, let's see. Now let's talk about the eyes. Does the sight affect, have myopia or any other issues, or even like getting older, you lose your sight a bit, or you tend to have, don't remember the name, but anyway, eyesight is affected. Am I affecting my posture because of that as well? Can I correct it?
You can. It does affect posture when you start to lose your sight, farsighted or nearsighted, myopia, astigmatism, all of those different refraction disorders can affect posture. That's why it's really important to get the proper prescription if you do have visual issues. But some studies are stating, have said that when you do some eye exercises, you can improve, in some cases, not correct, but improve the degeneration of the eye. But specifically the eye exercises that we're doing are mostly targeted at working out the eye muscles. The oculomotor muscles is what they're called, and there's 6 on each eyeball. And they're behind your eyelid, basically, and they control every single movement of your eye. And making sure that these muscles have the same amount of tension is super important, because the movement of the eye is coupled with the movement of the neck muscles.
Okay.
So, and the inner ear as well. So if you have more tension on one side, so for example, if I were to say to you, grab a pen and look at the tip of the pen with both of your eyes, and you have one eye that's moving in beautifully and the other eye is unable to focus on that target, right? Well, that's going to create a compensation in the muscles of the neck, because there is a reflex in the brainstem called the vestibulo-ocular reflex that basically states that when my head is moving in one direction, my eyes should move in the opposite direction. And if that system is impaired, which goes back to the brainstem, it will create compensations with the muscles of your neck, even the muscles of your jaw, the way that you chew. Even the way that you chew. And then since your head is attached to your shoulders, it's going to affect the way that you stand and walk. Going back to how well are you fighting gravity?
I do find it pretty well. Thank you for asking. Being serious. Chew. Yeah.
Chewing. So there are 4 pathways that the jaw can create an imbalance with the way that you are walking and standing and with your posture. There is the pathway of the actual joint of the jaw, which is called the temporomandibular joint. So that's one problem in itself. Yes, there's one on each side. There is the pathway of your teeth. Do you have missing teeth, or do you chew more on one side than the other? And if you do, the joint might be asymmetrical. And you could see that in a pattern X very easily. If the joint is asymmetrical, or if you chew asymmetrically, it will affect the tension of your neck, but it's also going to affect the tension of the muscles of the jaw. Now remember, the antagonists, when you chew your food, you have 4 muscles that help you chew the food, but you also have muscles that are antagonists to that. Upper trapezius being one of them, deltoids and pec major being 2 other ones. So if there's that asymmetry in those chewing muscles, there will be asymmetry in these. And that's why when people have TMJ issues, they always have the first area that hurts them in the morning is their neck. So there's the teeth, and then there's the tongue. The position of the tongue, which should be up on the palate, and the teeth should not touch more than 12 minutes per day when you're eating.
They should not touch?
That's it. If not touch more than 12 to 16 minutes per day max.
You need to have your jaw always, your mouth closed. Okay, tell me more.
Yes, your mouth should be closed. Your lips should be closed and covering your teeth, but your teeth should not be in contact. There should be a free space of 0.1 to 0.2 millimeters. And your tongue, your tongue should be up on the palate, on top, resting comfortably, not flexing, resting comfortably naturally. Now, when we clench our teeth, or if we didn't have proper eruption of our teeth, we start, and if we're stressed, we clench our teeth, and we tend to wear out the height of the teeth, which is referred to by dentistry as vertical dimension. So when you start to lose your vertical dimension, that actually pushes your head forward. It pushes your head forward. So remember what we were saying at the beginning about fighting gravity efficiently? Well, if your head is in front of your butt, what ends up happening is that line of gravity that passes through...
in front of yours than in front of someone else. Jean.
Jean. So the line of gravity that passes through L3 will either move forward or back, which will change all the tension in your back. Now remember, if it changes all the tension of your back muscles. So for every inch that your upper back goes forward, that's 250 kilos of pressure on your lower back.
Wow.
Additional. So there is nothing that will wear you down faster than what I call a forward posture. an anterior scapular plane, which is when your upper body, your shoulders, not your head is a problem also, but your shoulders following with the head are in front of your butt. Really, so if you add to that poor eating habits, stress, medication, and everything else that could, right, obviously, you're not going to be, there goes your longevity. True. Bye-bye. So the idea is to bring you back, Jean. If we can use eye exercises or jaw correction or foot stimulation or even positioning your tongue on the palate, if we can use these tools simultaneously together, what we know is that if this information is happening at the same time, feet, eyes, and jaw at the same time together for a sustained amount or period of time, you actually activate your brain and push your body back.
What about people that have scoliosis and like deformation of the back spine? Always a vestibular issue. Always an ocular issue. They actually have scoliosis of the jaw as well. What is it?
Yes. Well, the teeth and the joint is misaligned. You cannot find a case of scoliosis without scoliosis of the jaw. Usually a crossbite, right? When the jaw deviates on one side, either on one tooth or on an entire hemiarcade. But if there is scoliosis of the spine, there is scoliosis of the jaw as well.
Okay, very interesting.
They go hand in hand.
Tell me some things like now practicing the jaw and chewing and everything. So my first question is like, when you get older, your muscle tend to be less strong and your jaw start to fall down and keep your mouth like open. This is going against gravity actually. Or no, following the gravity.
Yes. I would tend to think that when you get older, you've gone through an entire life of probably clenching your teeth asymmetrically and wearing out your height, your vertical dimension, which will cause you when you sleep or stand to have an open mouth, because the tongue cannot be on the palate and be positioned properly if your vertical dimension is not proper to you. So your vertical dimension versus mine is different. And this could be, we can actually see it with very precise scans to know exactly where the joint is. But aging in general, I'll say this, the peripheral system, which is the part of the nervous system that takes in information to your muscles and from your muscles back to your brain, ages and loses its sensitivity with aging. Sugar, insulin resistance, destroys the peripheral system. This is why in type 2 diabetes or type 3 diabetes, you have the arch that starts in advanced stages. The arch of the foot will always collapse because of the effect that the insulin will have on the blood, on the blood vessels. But that being said, if we know that we're at some point going to die, and we know that we are aging as time passes by, we're all decaying by the minute. This is about doing things as you and I are doing in our everyday life, as your listeners are doing on their everyday life, to challenge or delay aging or age as gracefully as possible is what we're talking about. And posture is the missing link, not just posture corrections and exercises to correct your posture. Remember, if you're working out with a body that is misaligned, you are working yourself into injury. It will happen eventually. Movement is good, movement is life, but you will hurt yourself. So it's about fixing posture, the unconscious part of posture, the tonic muscles that we were discussing at the beginning of the call, of the podcast, those tonic muscles, to make sure that they're taut, tight, symmetrically, front to back, left to right, as best as possible, proper convergence, proper foot posture, vestibular function. Add some proper eating and everything else, and you now have the perfect combination to
let's stay on that point. Defy aging. I'm going to say, don't die. My friend Brian Johnson, best argument is don't die. He's putting a lot of efforts in posture and everything, but you should actually reach out to him, or I would do it for you, telling him that he's eating stuff that he doesn't chew, but he wants to extend his life. Now we are facing some things that is a paradox there.
Yes. Love him, by the way. I love what he's doing and love the entire concept. But you're right. What builds strong jaws is to chew hard food.
That. He has only like putty and nutty and and liquids. Yeah.
Yes, but he is an adult. He is an adult and his teeth are already out. It's to keep and to maintain muscle tone of the jaw. He should, anybody should chew hard foods. But this is extremely important for children.
So,
the best thing for a child is give them bones.
like dogs.
Oh no, a newborn baby. As of 1 year or 2 years old, when they can start eating solid food, you take a bone and just give it to them. If they're going to eat gluten-free bread or whatnot, make sure it's super hard.
Chew.
And have them so that they can develop strong.
So we can use the same food we use for our dog. Go pick it up.
But just natural bones, chewing on bones.
What about those things,
is the best.
I once bought that thing that it's a jaw exerciser. You put and you masticate harder and harder, as hard as you can. Those work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that is chewing. Yes, absolutely. But again, remember, just as with training, if you have, if you Google Panorex on Google, and you pay attention to the size of the joint, the actual joint of the lower part of the jaw of the mandible, very often you'll see that one side is super small and the other side is super big. So if you're using that device when you have this asymmetry, I would just be cautious not to have the disc slip in front of one joint, because if that happens, there is no solution. You're going to the hospital and they're giving you anti-inflammatories and you're out for 2 weeks. There is no solution. Or we grab your jaw and we jerk it down very aggressively, but you will not be very happy and you will be, the best way to knock somebody out is to knock them on the jaw, because the trigeminal nerve, right, it's in your brainstem. It's
blocked. Yeah.
So when that happens, you're not a happy camper.
And I'm part of these guys, if I open my mouth too much, it can be locked. So that's a problem of same, right.
Vertical dimension.
Same thing. Yeah.
Vertical dimension. Yeah, absolutely. It's just, you want to prevent the wear and tear of the teeth, and you want to promote for the teeth to erupt as much as possible through chewing in the young stages of life, in the early stages of life. That's why this information is so important for anyone that are going to be parents, early parents. I think that this information is extremely valuable. I was fortunate enough it's really interesting to see all of the stages with your kids, because I had a blast. Let me tell you, I played with the kids. I made sure I knew exactly which moment and which phase they were in as far as the nervous system and their development. And you could fully explore that right from the early stages.
That is beautiful.
This
is the thing we're missing in our society. We don't teach kids how to breathe. We don't teach kids how to get the proper posture, but hopefully in the future is going to be a change, and you're part of this change for sure. So you have a lot of product on your website as well. We're going to put your website on the captions here. You sell all sorts of product. How do you choose those products? And why these products are on your website? Did you design them? Did you come up with a source that is something that was serving your cause? Explain me, please.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say that those products were not available to the public prior to COVID. They were not. They were only being used for myself and for my students, because I do choose this teach this method to other healthcare practitioners who want to have a profound impact on life within their practice. I did inspire myself from other published studies out there on similar devices on how to stimulate and the mechanoreceptors, those sensory receptors in the skin of the foot, to try to understand how we can use that doorway, the foot, to have an effect on posture. My first question was, can we do this? And if we can, how can we do it? And we developed basically, the first insoles I was working with were therapeutic insoles, which work with the frequency, which is the language of the nervous system. And when COVID hit, we put them on a live store, which was not live at the time. And we added other components to more affordable, just to make it more affordable for those who would not be able to afford the therapeutic insoles. They work on the same principle of pressure, using those pressure at different areas of the foot to create different postural responses. And for me, I call them having a personal coach for your feet, because they make you save time. If you wear them, they work when you're non-weight bearing. So if you're sitting down right now,
right,
your brain will pick up on the frequency. You're not going to be aware of it. You're not going to feel anything different. But also all of the clinical studies that I've done since 2006 were with the therapeutic insoles. So I know they work because I've seen too many positive things come out of them. And I thought it would be great during COVID to
Very cool.
Introduce them to the world.
Some people say that humans are not made to run, but to walk. Planning on a 12 hours walk, should I wear those in my shoes? Should I not wear any shoes? What's your recommendation on that?
So if you are perfectly balanced, walking barefoot is great. But as you've said before, most people have pain and have some kind of imbalance. So I would recommend at least making sure that you're aligned first. The wear of the therapeutic insoles is not something that I recommend for life. Okay. It's part of the recalibration process, right? That neuroplasticity, you want to change those old patterns and replace them with new ones. The old pattern is being you are misaligned to now you are fully better aligned. Once this comes into place, which usually again 6 weeks to a year, then you could start weighing off the insoles. Nothing bad will happen if you stop wearing them, and then start doing your activities, whether it be barefoot or whatnot. I will say one little thing, that the shoes do matter. So if you are going to choose to wear shoes, make sure that they are shaped to accommodate
so many
your
people
foot.
are complaining about after a walk of like 10, 20 minutes, they always have back pain. What would be your advice for them to correct that?
Yeah, so the walking, the tiredness or the pain after 12 minutes, I would recommend have her do some VOR exercises, really some, just not even, you don't even need to purchase something. Just put your finger here and just kind of like, move your head sideways or do some eye exercises. I have tons of videos for free on all of my channels. And see if the back pain disappears or at least diminishes or dampens. If it does, it means that the eyes are causing the imbalance. Remember, back pain is a symptom. It's a symptom. So we can't ignore symptoms, because then they become something much more problematic afterwards. So finding the cause, usually the eyes, and if there's back pain that's been there for a while, then rubbing the skin of the foot might also be a good idea.
Love it.
Right? And then retest to see, did that make a change? And in most cases, more often than not, it does make a change. However, she'll need to repeat that 3-4 times a day, every single day. That's where the insoles really become interesting, because they save you time. Just put them in your shoes.
Easy.
They're doing the work for you.
Annette, where people can find you?
PosturePro.co is our website, or the handle PosturePro,
I saw on
across
Instagram,
every platform.
Nice account there with tons of tips, either on your corporate site and your personal site as well on Instagram, are like full of packed of information and tips. And I do recommend people to go there and learn about posture. We neglect that part so much. We take tons of supplement. We take everything. We're using cold plunges, baths, and whatever, but we never think about the basic fundament of our health, posture. All this information was a lot of information.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Don't worry, guys. All information are going to be in the script here with the link to websites and everything, and handles and Instagram and all accounts. Annette, it was a great pleasure having you on this podcast today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean.